Hello and welcome back to the Armchairs View. Joining me this week is Hickers and Mike. Just want to say thank you very much to everyone who's listened on Spotify, followed us on TikTok. A couple of our TikToks have done quite well, a couple of them not so well, but we'll blame Hickers for his dodgy shouts on that one. Hickers, Mike, how are you doing?
Good.
Yeah, living the dream as always, Dan. Very well.
So we teased a bit last week about doing a top five, so we're actually going to cover a top five and a flop five this week. If there's anything you listeners or excuse me or viewers disagree with, please feel free to get in touch. All the details will be below as normal. So we'll start with the top five and let's kick it off with Hickers this week.
Oh, the honour. Right, top five signings of the season. Okay, right. I'm going to start with a January signing.
Ooh.
I've gone for Emmanuel Agbadu from Wolves, who made the move to Wolves for £17 million. Do you want me to list them off, Dan, and then go into them? Or shall we discuss?
I think list them off and then me and Mike will criticise you.
Okay. Okay, so we've got Emmanuel Agbadu, Aaron Wan-Bissaka, Omar Marmoush.
Another January.
Another January signing. Liam Delap. And I've gone for, probably my top one is Dean Howson.
I think we've got one that's the same, Hickers, but I'll save mine. Just let
That's
Mike
good.
go next.
Right, I'll go next. All right, okay. So I've tried to take price into account. So someone I looked at, I thought I paid quite a lot. I did look at Dave Ryan. Obviously, it was a permanent deal this year.
No,
I don't think he made that. Huh?
He can't have that. He was there last year. You can't have that.
I just said that's why I put him in.
You can't have that.
In theory, I guess the transfer officially went through
this year,
last summer.
The deal with I said, I think Dan will agree that the deal was made last year. It was just that the price was paid in the last summer. So I have
an obligation, wasn't
it? I can't remember his first name, but Sarr from Crystal Palace, 11 million from Marseille. I thought he did really well for Palace, especially in the second half of the season. For 11 million, any player you get for about 10 million nowadays, and it's in your starting lineup consistently, is a good buy for me. Yeah, I'll pick us. I think we both got Delap. 20 million.
Three of us.
Yeah, I think for 20 million you buy a striker who can do that in the Premier League. I know it was 12 goals, but a 12-goal season striker for 20 million now.
Give us your list. I don't want you to go into it yet. Give us your list.
Shut up, you tart. Jesus Christ. I've got Jake O'Brien. I thought he did absolutely smashing. Given the whole season even better. I've gone for Bergvall because again he was only 8.5 mil, and again he started most games for Tottenham. And he's very young. Yeah, for Spurs. He's like 20 years old or something. He's very young.
First player in there, one of the worst league seasons in like 20 years. But anyway.
Personally, I quite like that call, actually.
Both wrong then.
I quite like it. It's a different shout as well.
And my last one is my man, Skilly Man and Die. Absolutely sensational player.
Skilly Man. So I've got Dean Howson from Bournemouth. He's now at Real Madrid. Ismail Assar as well, Mike. Iliman and Jai. Liam Delap. And then I've gone Elliot Anderson from Forest.
Oh, that's a new one because you were overlapping with either one of us until you mentioned
and it was
Elliot
Anderson. Him and Milenkovic, but I think we've covered Milenkovic a few times. So
I think Milenkovic was. I tried to steer clear of the obvious ones because Milenkovic was an amazing signing, but I had to put Delap in there because he was just well beyond the best signing of the season.
Like you boys, Milenkovic was on my list as well. I think we've discussed him in a lot of depth already. So we'll throw out some different names.
Yeah.
I'm curious to why you've got Jake O'Brien. As you know, Mark, I'm a big fan of Jake O'Brien, but he only really played since Moyes come in. So he was a summer signing.
He was,
played second half.
If he'd have been a January signing and he'd have come in and done what a signing in January. The problem is, if you're not fancied by a manager, it's almost even worse because coming in the summer and not been played at all unless it's been forced upon him. A manager didn't fancy him, didn't play him. That's such a hit to confidence. Then a new manager come in to then take his spot, go, do you know what, and take his chance by the scruff of the neck. and he scored 2 goals for us. I think in consecutive weeks that saved us a point. Which I think he had an absolutely amazing season. He scored some big goals for us, and to be
a top 5
for so long.
To be a top 5 transfer, though, you've got to have come in and made an impression straight away. Again, I love Jacob Bryant.
Why do you have to come in and make an impression straight away? The signing was made in the summer. List,
everyone else has.
Well, I think Jacob Bryant's had an excellent second half to the season. There's no questioning that.
Considering he was only played in I think to be left out of the squad for so long, that's such a hit.
Well, have we lost him?
I think we've lost him.
He's gone a bit blurry now, isn't he? Oh, he's back. But even your Wi-Fi knew you were talking shite there, Mike.
Right, let's not start that, right? Oh, someone's plucked up some courage today.
Sorry, because I can't remember half of yours. I think there was one that was a bit. I think Marmoush, you had in there. I think that was a good shout. But again, I don't think he came in and changed City, did he? I don't think they improved dramatically with him. I know he scored a few.
I must say I disagree. I think he improved Man City quite a huge amount, because I think he was brought in whilst they were going through that really hideous spell of form where they literally could not get a win. Pep infamously said, there's a lot to learn from Russell Martin after they beat us 1-0, and they certainly learned quite a few lessons in losing. But yeah, back to Marmoush. Yeah, I mean, I felt like he came in and had quite a good impact. Certainly, particularly when you consider Haaland was, later on got injured as well, and he certainly carried them through probably their best part of the season, which was towards the end. And they got their reward by getting into the Champions League. But
I could argue that if he did miss a penalty in the FA Cup final.
So that is true. I'm going to credit the save more than the miss, personally. I didn't think it was a bad penalty. It was just an excellent save.
It was a good save, and Henderson shouldn't have been on the pitch.
But for me, I love Marmoush because he came in, he's scored a lot of goals. I think he got a hat-trick really early on into his sort of Man City career. He's incredibly energetic. He finds spaces in and around the box, and he's so clinical as well. I think he topped off with the fact he got goal of the season, didn't he? I think he got awarded that in the last week.
He got Premier League one, didn't he? I think.
Well, the Premier League goal of the season. That was an absolute cracker in off the bar.
I'm just double checking how many goals he actually scored this season. Just
trying 8, wasn't it? 8 or 9?
7. So, yeah, it's not bad for a January signing, to be fair.
And he's got multiple positions as well. Like, he's played on the left, he's played as the number 10, he's played as the striker. I just think, he's been an excellent signing. I can see what you're saying. Does he make the top 5?
It's a good buy. I did think about him, but I didn't think he did quite enough to warrant a place on the list. Really, I think he did do very well, but he is playing for Man City. He is playing for a team that is all about scoring goals and dominating the game. So a striker that comes into one of those teams is going to have a few chances to score, isn't he? So
just want to apologise if there's any background noise. Then my dog has decided now is a good time to get up and have a wander around my feet, and then she's pissed off again. So if there's any noise there, I apologise. I think we just don't talk about Delap. I think he was a risk for Ipswich with the money they outlaid for him, but good signing. And obviously he's gone on now to sign for Chelsea. So I think 2 of my list have already been sold, and Dean Howson and Liam Delap, which I think just goes to show how well they've done this season.
Yeah. Well, they're both on my list as well, Dan, and I couldn't agree more. Going back to Delap, I thought they'd overpaid because he had bang average sort of stats and numbers in the Championship. I think he only had like 8 goals for Hull City on loan, which isn't fantastic. What, sorry?
When he played for them, I'm sure they were pushing playoffs, weren't they?
Oh yeah, I mean Hull were an excellent team last year under Liam Rossinho. They've gone horribly downhill, but that's not Premier League chat. But But yeah, I mean,
just to
Delap's
go,
just been fantastic.
Just to go on your point, Hickers, I think that is a good point. He was definitely a risk because I'm just having a quick look at his statistics before Ipswich now, and 2 appearances for City, 0 goals. I'm assuming they're both last 5-10 minute kind of appearances. He then spent the season on loan at Stoke, 22 appearances, 3 goals. Then he spent, I'm assuming this is probably a 6-month loan because it just says 2023 at Preston, 15 appearances, 1 goal. Hull for the 23-24 season, 31 appearances, 8 goals. So you're absolutely right in what you're saying. And then 37 games, 12 goals for Ipswich. He also stays fit by the looks of that as well. So for that, less of a risk.
Lots of appearances.
He scored some good goals as well. He's a powerful player, isn't he? He's not scared to get amongst it.
He's still quite young. How old is he at the moment? Is he 20?
22, I believe.
22.
Yeah, a lot of experience for his age.
Yeah.
22.
Yeah.
And obviously the son of Rory Delap, isn't he?
If they're going to put him as their main striker, it's a bit of a gamble for them if they're going to go with the main striker. I'll be curious to see how many goals he gets. If he gets 50 plus goals, it'd be amazing.
I think it'll depend who Chelsea are playing, whether he'll play or not, because they've still got Nicholas Jackson, hasn't they? Who's not had a bad return this season. I know he's been out injured a few times, but yeah, scored.
What do you boys think? Who starts next season? That's quite a debate. That
I think the
good competition,
because that's who Maresca's brought in. So I think that's his man. I know he probably quite likes Jackson, but because Jackson was starting over Felix and Cuckoo.
Could you start them both? It's not really the Maresca system, but they offer different qualities, don't they? I think
Jackson could play off a wing. I'm not sure how successfully it'd be. I think Jackson could offer you something out wide, but he looks a bit clumsy, doesn't he, Jackson? Still, I mean, the when he was still on goal in the Conference League final, and then he just took a touch for about 60 yards straight into the keeper when he was still on goal. It sums him up a little bit.
I don't think you have that absolute assurance he's going to bury it.
No, but there's Delap offer you that either. Is Delap the right signer for Chelsea? Potentially,
I think Delap's hold-up play is far better than Jackson's. Like I said, Jackson's close control is shocking. I do wonder how some players do those kind of touches and dribbling. It's such a basic skill to master, and they still, like I say, that massive touch in the Conference League final. Surely at that point you should be able to dribble with the ball 99 times out of 100.
He was probably exhausted though, to be fair to him. But they had put a lot into taking control of the game, I think. Although I think it was only 2-1 at the time.
Iliman was aiming for the corner, that's fine. But
why has Iliman Ndiaye made your top 5, Mike?
Well, I think apart from he had a little bit of an injury, didn't he, midway through, but everything Everton have done this season that has been good going forward, he's been at the heart of. I think Alcaraz came in and he did really well. I think he was the only other one I thought looked at him and go, when he gets the ball, you go, go on, do something. You can do something. You know, I think it's the reason why we've got rid of people like Decore and all those other players that are just not gifted with the ball. They'll work hard, they'll drive, and they'll defend for you. But you can't have 11 players that are just gifted at defending. You won't score goals. And that's the problem.
Ndiaye. I mean, I think he's an absolute. What, sorry?
Let's have the other side of the argument. Why isn't he in your top 5?
Why is he not in my top 5? I guess just haven't quite seen enough consistency maybe from him. I mean, he's got unquestionable talent, and he's a very sort of established Championship player when I think he played for Sheffield United. I think he may have even won the Championship Player of the Season. It was just whether he was going to make, how well he was going to make that step up to Prem football. And you can arguably say he's had some fantastic moments of quality in the season. He's got that ability to sort of glide past players and finish. I mean, I guess just for me is does he have that end product consistently enough? You've probably watched him a bit more than I have.
9 goals in his debut Premier League season may suggest he does, but what I will say is I think the consistency came from when he went down or off injured against Liverpool. He missed 6 or 7 weeks, and he was sort of rushed back to then play Liverpool again.
Yeah,
and for a few weeks he looks a little bit off it, but I've got him.
It looked like he was playing cautiously, didn't he? The first few weeks back, it looked like he was playing with
the
him.
impact he made on the Everton side. I think that's the main reason I've got him in.
And he's only going to get better as well. That's what you've got, a real gem.
I hope so. Before we touch on someone else that's in our top 5 here, because I just want to ask why Fernandez for Southampton wasn't in your top 5, because I was expecting it.
Dan,
I was expecting it.
Oh, I love Matty Fernandez. He is by far and away our best signing, even more so than Ramsdale. But I had to put my my personal bias aside, I think.
Unlike Mike, who's gone for Jacob Ryan.
Cracking
I think Fernandez has got.
Get this season less than Jacob Ryan.
Honestly, he's got one hell of a future ahead of him, Matty Fernandez. I just pray that he is with us, but I just can't see it. He was far too consistent at Premier League level, and he stood out like a sore thumb in a poor Southampton team.
I would take him ready to put if Everton went in for Fernandez, I'd be quite happy with us to sign him.
Honestly, you'd love him.
I was ready to put in the argument, Hickers, that you can't have someone in the top 5 who almost got a record amount of low points. I was ready for the debate, but fortunately, you're a bit more mature than Mike and I, who have obviously favoured player from Everton.
I was tempted though, Dan.
I'm just going to touch a little bit on Elliot Anderson, who I've got. I think it was actually just one of those PSR deals, wasn't it, to get him out of Newcastle. I don't think they particularly wanted.
Yeah, it was a little bit sus, wasn't it?
And I think a keeper went the other way for a lot of money, which again is a bit suspect. But I don't think Anderson got off to a great start. I'm not sure he started the first few games, but every time I've watched him, he's looked calm on the ball. He's composed, and he does look like he's going to make things happen. And I thought, again, I touched on it for team of the season, that I had to have some sort of Forest player in there after the season they had.
Yeah, hard to argue with you, Dan, with Elliot Anderson. I think he's been fantastic. They also brought in sort of James Ward-Prowse, didn't they, in the summer? And, it's been clear who won that battle. And you know what my feelings are about James Ward-Prowse. I think
we'll touch on James Ward-Prowse later, I'm sure.
Oh, dear. Oh, dear.
But
the thing is that the Forest team is that they're almost feels like they've had 3 or 4 new signings, in the fact that players like Wood, Elanga, Gibbs White, and all those players that had really standout seasons, who perhaps weren't as standout last year. Gibbs White looked good last year, but this year he looked untouchable at points. He looked absolutely lethal going forward and really tricky and broken into the England squad, rightfully so. So sometimes a new signing is almost just like an old player coming good or growing into the team or finding their place in the system.
But he was really box to box, wasn't he, Elliot Anderson? You'd see him surging, making those late runs into the box, and then he's back there, last ditch defending in front, sort of in front of the centre backs. That's what I like about him. He allows your Gibbs Whites to be that source of creativity and attacking flair, and then he allows who's playing CDM? Was it Sangare for a while?
Yeah, good question.
To do, to stick to his position at the back, and he's the one moving up and down the pitch, probably covering the most yards. And he's got one hell of a strike on him as well.
Yeah, he scored he scored a few goals, and I bet most of them were in and around the edge of the 18-yard box. But Mike touched on a teammate, or sort of a teammate at the start of the season, and James Ward-Prowse with a bit of a smile. So, Mike, if you want to give us your flop 5.
Okay, I haven't ranked them. My flop 5 are Calvin Phillips, Oliver Skipp, James Ward-Prowse, Timo Werner, and Amano Broja.
Oh, I'd tell you, we've got one the same. I think that's harsh on Oliver Skipp. I don't know.
25 million is a lot of money for a player that did not a lot.
Yeah, you might be right.
I'll be honest. I had a moment when you said Timo Werner. I was thinking, hold on, Mike. We're going back a few seasons, but he's on loan. He's been on loan at Spurs, hasn't he?
Yeah. Do you remember him playing?
I knew you said someone, and it ticked. It was actually Timo Werner, so I apologise for the Oliver Skipp shout. That seems harsh. He's been injured a lot.
Yeah, but you loan a player in. I know he's been injured a lot, but again, you loan a player in after having not a great spell. Like he didn't really set the world alight the first time. Surely if you loan a player back in, it's because he's done such a good job.
I'm also being a bit hypocritical because I'm going to read you my flop 5 now, and I think at least 2 of them are in here because they've been injured the whole time. So I've got Raheem Sterling, obviously Arsenal on loan. Igor Thiago from Brentford, which was a £30 million signing, and he played.
Oh, no, that is harsh. That is so harsh. He's not even been on the pitch.
Yeah, exactly.
The thing is, buying a player who then gets injured is unlucky, but loaning a player then just cancel the loan. Just cancel it.
I'll let you continue.
Igor Thiago, Brentford, 30 million, 7 appearances, not good enough. João Felix, Chelsea, 46.3 million. They had to loan him out in January. Jadon Sancho speaks for itself. They had to pay 5 million just so they didn't have to buy him. I've got 2, which were fighting for my 5th spot. So one of them was Armando Broja, so I'm going to leave him out. The other one was Jordan Ayew from Palace for 7.5 million. I don't think Leicester had a whole lot of money to play with, and spending almost 10 million on him, and he is pony. So that was a terrible signing.
He's got one good game in about 18, that Jordan Ayew. And
he's normally Everton.
He's one of those. He's one of those players who bloody haunts me, Jordan Ayew. He doesn't score against anyone apart from Southampton, and he did score the
2 goals a season, Southampton and Everton. Apart from that, he's crap.
There you go. Yeah, and he scored the winner at St Mary's in a 3-2.
First appearance against Saints, then his second appearance against Everton. That's all he done last season for Palace or whatever it was.
Palace. Yeah. So I'll put Jordan Ayew in above Broja, but I'll be honest, that's only because you've got Broja, Mike, so we'll touch on him in a little bit. But Hickers, let's see your top 5, mate.
Okay, I'll start with the ones that have already been mentioned. João Felix.
Good shout.
I think that is a real standout, awful signing, but we'll go into that. I've put Matthias de Ligt.
Ooh, yeah, okay. Ooh. I think he is one of their better signings, but.
Oh no! Okay, we're going to disagree on that one. I've put Nicholas Füllkrug.
Yeah, I considered him. Yeah, good shout. He's crap.
I've put in Joshua Zirkzee.
Oh, I thought about Zirkzee because he's just so. They paid over his release clause, didn't they?
I think he's been played out of position. I think if you drop him back, he looks like a much better player, but he's not had a great season. But I'd put that down to the 2 managers as well. So carry on.
My last one is same as Mike. Oliver Skip.
I am, like I said,
awful signing. Awful.
The thing is, I don't mind an awful sign. Like Timo Werner, a bit harsh on me because he's on loan. But you pay 25 million as a Leicester side for a player, and he is not your best player.
It didn't make sense. It's so much money.
It's essentially the same player. They already had Harry Winks. I'm not sure they offered a whole lot different.
Well, that's what I mean. That's why I think it's an awful signing. Like,
I think
it's a lot of money to spend on a player who is not going to come in and improve your lineup immediately.
I mean,
if Skip had come in and stopped them leaking goals, shored them up defensively, broke up the play, and helped recycle possession, I'm like, do you know what? Not a bad signing. It was worth the hold to just make them a bit more assured, and he just didn't. He just wasn't good enough.
We're going to sort of and over the next few weeks grade Premier League teams. That's more for you listeners because Mike and Hick is already aware of this. But I think Leicester's recruitment is going to play a big part in their rating in that because I reckon you could have had 4 of theirs which could have easily made the top 5. But
I tried not to have too many
United,
for one club.
United could have had 2 or 3 in here. Chelsea could have had, I've got 2 in here for me. Brentford with Igor Thiago. So
I did look at Felix. It was 46.5 million, was it? They paid for him.
Yeah.
I mean, did anyone think at the time that was just the most unusual signing ever? Because he had in his first spell at Chelsea, he didn't exactly set the world alight, did he?
No.
And then they go back and they buy him permanently for a huge sum of money. He's looked pretty bang average. I think he got 1 goal for Chelsea, and then he had a terrible loan spell at AC Milan.
Do you think it was a panic buy?
I just think they bought him because he was available. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's probably a better way to put it.
He's sort of like he's a big name, isn't he? He's been a big name for a while because Atletico Madrid bought him for 100+ million, and I guess they felt like he was available. They can get, I don't know. Yeah, he's clearly got some talent.
Candy.
What, Mike?
Piece of candy. It's that thing, isn't it? Something's there, so you just take it. Ooh, piece of candy.
Yeah.
I wonder what you're going on about then.
Talking to myself, Dan. Don't worry. I'm only half in this podcast and half talking to myself.
Did you know what he's talking about then, Hickers? I just assumed he was playing a game or something. I was really confused then.
It's made me laugh. So
for those of you listening on Spotify, Mike's attention would look like it had been drawn by something else, but I think he was just talking about João Felix.
Yeah.
Who I also think's only as big a name as he is because he looks like Kaká.
So he doesn't look that much like Kaká, not really.
Well, that's what everyone says every year. They put two pictures up and like, oh, he looks more like Kaká than he does. But his actual footballing ability, he's never really stood out, has he?
You couldn't compare him to Kaká.
He's got some good technical ability, I think. I've seen some nice, neat finishes, but
do you think with players like him, it's decision making that lets him down? Because with a player who's technically very good, it's just a choice of what you do. If it's always wrong, it doesn't matter how good you are. It's a case of play the right pass, do the wrong thing, and it's a whole different ball game.
They're talking about being technically gifted and wrong decision making. I would put Raheem Sterling in that bracket now. I know when he was at Man City, different kettle of fish, but
he's the shadow of a player that he used to be.
I know he started really young, didn't he? And players who start that young tend to fade out, but he was, when he started this downfall, when he only like 28 or something, because he wasn't very good for Chelsea, and then for some reason Arsenal have brought him in, and at the time, to be fair, I thought potentially a good bit of business. He could come on at the end of game, try and win the game, but he's been crap.
When Arsenal loaned him, it did look like it could be a good bit of business for both sides, and it could be a useful player for them, and Arsenal could help him resurge his career. But they just didn't do well enough, did they?
The only reason it's potentially a good deal is because Chelsea still paid more of his wages than Arsenal.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, whilst I agree the signing's not worked out, it's been pretty awful. Can we deem it a one of the worst 5 signings? Because in some ways, they didn't really have much to lose if they could get a player of Sterling's pedigree on loan and paying half the wages.
What was he brought in for? What was Sterling, do you think, brought in for?
I don't think he was ever going to be brought in to start. I think he was there to strengthen the squad, to help them get through a busy European schedule.
And Saka were always going to be the starting two, weren't they? It was just
did he improve the squad? Or was he pushed aside for...
he's blooming awful. If anything, he made the team worse.
Exactly. So someone who's come in and made the team worse, because they're still paying him a fair wage.
Yeah. And he started both games against Southampton, and I've watched both of them in full. He was shocking. I honestly, shocking, non-existent, and he's such a big name. Sorry, Raheem, but you were a fantastic player back in the day. But
I'm sure he's listening.
I think Liverpool's system suited him when he was young and so quick. It suited him, the counter-attacking football with him, Suarez, and Sturridge.
He's better than just a counter-attacking player. When he played at City, he was always arriving at that far post tapping. I mean, he scored a lot of goals throughout his career. He's had a great career, but
no question.
Because they weren't that. It was a different style of play, but. I think he'll always favour that counter-attacking team, and that's just not Arsenal or Chelsea.
Well, City weren't counter-attacking.
No, but that's the thing. But he had Pep, and I think Pep worked the system, and he was taught to go where he was. But he hit for 9 times out of 10 for City. What he was doing was hitting the baseline and then dropping the cross in. That was his role. 9 times out of 10 when he got the ball, he'd get the ball, hit down byline, and dink.
He scored a lot of important goals. I'm sure he scored a last-minute winner against you, Hickers, when he sort of curled it in from the edge of the box. So he was an important player for quite a long time for City, and I think it's harsh to say he just hit the byline and crossed it. That's something Adama Traore can do. I mean, his crossing's on the toe.
His crossing's horrendous, and his dribbling's not great. It's just speed and power for Traore.
So, Armando Broja, Mike, why is he on yours? Because you've criticised me for putting in Igor Thiago for always being injured. What's the difference?
I put Broja in there because if you buy a player who you know is injury prone,
loaned.
Well, you know what I mean. Loaned a player who is so injury prone, comes in, does okay for 3 games, gets injured again, and comes back out. We knew he was injury prone. I just think if you buy a striker and you already have an injury prone striker, you need someone to come in and go who's going to turn up every week and be fit every week. And even when he was on the pitch, sometimes he never looked like scoring. Did he? I don't think he even got 1 goal for us.
I think he played really. No, he didn't. He played really well in his first game. Looked like scoring. And he did
against
when
Wolves.
He came back from. So he came injured. Got into the side late November, early December.
Yeah.
Got injured. He looked quite lively in that short spell. When he came back, he just didn't look like he trusted his body. He didn't look like he could run.
The thing was, the only game I remember looking really good was when he came on against Wolves, and that was when we beat Wolves 4-0, and that was their last game before they sacked their manager and had that big turnaround. So we were playing an awful Wolves side, which were dejected and low confidence, and he looked all right, but our whole team looked all right back then, and that was under Dyche when we didn't look good going forward.
He's just not quite capitalised, has he, on the starts that he was given, and he's had opportunities. It just saddens me to see Broja because he was fantastic on loan for us at Southampton. He's shown glimpses for England against England as well. Do you remember there was the game England-Albania, and Broja came on. He was absolutely on the wing, unbelievable.
He played on the wing.
But
he never played like that for Everton after the injury. He never looked like he wanted to be there, be a bit strong.
He's a strange one. He's a strange one because you look at him, and you think, tall, physical, be able to hold the ball up. He can't really do that. He plays. His strengths are more like that of a winger. It's really odd. I always thought he had the ability to beat a man, trickery, good pace. But he doesn't do some of the basic things you want of a striker.
No, I agree. Do you want me to touch on Igor Thiago then? Because obviously you're both disagreeing with me. I don't think he scored. I will double check that while I'm talking. 30 million for a team like Brentford who don't tend to spend that kind of money. It's just not saying it won't work out this season. It didn't work out. I know he got the injury, but even when he came back, did he really look brilliant? I don't even think he got.
He did. He came.
I think it's hard for players to come back though after you're that long out. You can't just come back and find your best form in the Premier Division, especially when he's new to it in the first place. So I
into replace Tony, and you've not done anything.
Yeah,
no goals,
but he's not. I just don't think it's fair to judge him on the few games that he's had towards the end of this season. Fair enough. I think, we can judge him after a full pre-season and hopefully, we'll see a bit more of him this year. Then we can judge him. But, it's hard to disagree with you in the sense that, that's £30 million worth of
I think if
nothing.
he doesn't step up or Brentford don't make a couple of signings in the summer, I think they're really going to struggle, especially if they lose the manager. I know we're going slightly off topic there, but I think Brentford, if they keep doing business like that, are going to be in real trouble next season.
Well, they've already brought in Kelleher.
I'm not sure how good a signing that is. We'll see. I know he's looked good in glimpses, but he's also had a couple of dodgy ones, which people seem to forget.
Well, we'll see what he's like as a number one. It'll be interesting, won't it?
I mean, I like Brentford. I think they do their business well, and I hope they sort of are comfortable. I hope they don't do as well as Everton, but I hope they're comfortable.
Going back to Igor, did he come in injured? Because I remember his first appearance.
I think he got injured in pre-season.
Because his first appearance was against Everton, wasn't it?
I think
he came on as a substitute.
I think he got injured in pre-season. I think he signed and then done his was it an ACL? I think he did. Might be wrong.
Yeah, you're right.
So many players come back from ACL and they're just not the same. They're just.
I don't know. Nowadays it is easier to come back.
Maybe, but
not easy, but easier.
Yeah, well, it's always Michael Owen always says, doesn't he? When did he do his MCL, Michael Owen?
I think the one that got him was didn't he tear his hamstring, and he said after that when he was 21, he lost his
he didn't trust his own body, did he? He was playing, and he was always expected.
Was that for Newcastle?
I think it was for Real Madrid. I think he went to Real Madrid and then done it, and then he came back and done his knee playing for England in the Euros.
That was the Euros, wasn't it? Yeah.
And he went down.
That was in the first 5 minutes of the game, wasn't it?
Yeah, that one. I don't know why I'm talking about Michael Owen, by the way, but because he's not. I'm not his biggest fan. Although what I will say is he's done quite well. Is he's made Everton fans dislike him, Liverpool fans dislike him, Man United fans dislike him, and I'd probably just chuck City in there as well. I don't think any City fan would like him either.
And viewers watching him on TV as a pundit. No, I'm joking.
Although, credit to him, he said City would struggle this year, and I think he was the only pundit who did.
Fair play.
Even a broken clock's right twice a day, Dan.
I actually quite like Michael Owen as a pundit. I only said that because he's been given a bit of stick, hasn't he, with the old stating the obvious.
You don't score,
I feel like sometimes he just tries to fill a silence. Like he felt he hasn't said something in a while, so he just says something, and that's when he ends up saying stuff like, "Do you know what? When they don't score, they hardly ever win." He ends up saying those sort of things just to fill the silence. And look like an idiot.
I'll tell you what, we'll put a pin in this, but next week or the week after, maybe we'll do a section on pundits and have a chat about pundits. Because I've not seen too many people actually discuss pundits, so maybe we'll do something slightly different and discuss pundits. Because there's a couple out there that are pony. There's a couple of really good ones, but there's a couple that are pony.
I know, I like that idea.
Yeah.
Can I give you another expand on one of mine? Fulkrug.
Of course.
Nicholas Fulkrug. I think for me, he is one of the most disappointing signings this season. Just simply because I thought everyone kind of thought, oh, West Ham, they've solved their striker hoodoo. They brought in an absolute bargain. I mean, I thought it was quite a good price, 25 million for a player who's just been banging in goals for on the international stage in the Euros for Germany, and then also for Dortmund in the Champions League. You think you can't go wrong with a signing like that?
What I will say is you've got to give him a bit of credit considering he looks like he's towing around a caravan all the time. So the ability to still run.
And I know, and I don't want to sound like I'm being a hypocrite. I know he's had his fair struggles with injury. But I don't know. Just
the one thing I would say about him is when Potter came in, they don't play to his strengths, do they?
No, I mean, he's all about, he wants the crosses into the box, doesn't he? He's fantastic head of the ball.
Ironically, if they still had Moyes, he'd have probably looked a better signing. But obviously, they weren't. Moyes got Moyes out, the Messiah. He's had a I agree with you.
I do wonder how well he gets on with some of his teammates when he comes out with some of the weird rant he had after the Southampton game. It's just bizarre, just throwing all the team members under the bus, and he's not played all year.
I'm sure this week as well, didn't he come out saying, "Oh, I don't like living in a city. I want to be in a countryside," and all this. Like, could he make it any clearer he don't like being at West Ham?
Yeah. Well, he's not going to succeed with that sort of mentality, and yeah, I think that's why he's got to be right in there.
I think he'll be sold this summer, and I'd be shocked if it was to a Premier League club. Unless someone
good luck getting 25 mil.
Yeah, they're going to get about 12 the way he's gone on there.
Yeah. And he's a fair old age as well, I think he was a signing who had to make an immediate impact for them to get a return on that 25 million. That's just going to depreciate like this. Just down, quite dramatically. But yeah.
I'd like to say something about one of our. I've put him in my worst signings, but for a rare thing, he was one of the worst signings this season. But I'd still take a gamble on him as James Ward-Prowse. Or was he bought or loaned? I can't remember off the top of my head.
He was loaned because West Ham recalled him in January.
Yeah. I still think he's worth gambling at like 10, 15 mil on him, or even another loan, because the set pieces he's got.
He played at West Ham. He was playing.
Potter likes him. Potter likes Ward-Prowse. Yeah.
He couldn't get a game at Forest, could he?
I think he made like 2 or 3 appearances. He come on as a couple of subs, but like I say, Anderson and that were keeping him well out of the squad, and he couldn't get a game in. But I still think he's a decent player. I know he's mainly about his set pieces and stuff, but teams like Everton who flourish with set pieces, you just love to have someone who can put the ball in the box like him.
I would say though, to be fair to him, if you've got a team that, because Forest were like second and third when he wasn't getting a game, you don't change a winning team. But
No.
when he did play, he wasn't great, was he? For them,
I think he was a victim of circumstance. To be honest with you, I think it's hard to make when you're a player like Ward-Prowse. I don't think he's someone who can make an impact with 20-minute cameos. I think he needs to be playing the whole game, show that sort of energy, that fitness, the chance to, to whip in the crosses, set pieces. I'm just so pleased for him that he's got that sort of manager's confidence again with Potter, because he is a really, really classy player, and he showed that. He showed that when he first joined West Ham. For me, he started brilliantly.
I would say he's an excellent player for a team that's going to be in a bit of a dogfight, because he just adds that bit of quality that not many teams down there have. Maybe a bit Arsenal, maybe him a disservice, because he probably could play at a slightly higher level. But for that,
he does have quality, and he never gets injured either. Honestly, he's like a machine. He never. I don't think he's ever picked up an injury. He plays 90 minutes. He can play him twice a week, no problem at all. Well, sorry.
Apart from for Forest, he wouldn't play for Forest.
Well, yeah, but understandably, that's because Forest were winning a hell of a lot of games without him in the team. You're not going to get an opportunity, as you said, whilst the team is winning. And Forest have got some fantastic midfield players.
Jadon Sancho is in my flop 5.
He looked good.
I think that's harsh.
I think that's harsh. He had a couple of good games.
They've paid not to sign him. They've paid.
But is that down to contract though? They don't want to pay a huge,
Can you point out to me a game this season where you've watched him and gone, fantastic? He's grabbed the game by the scruff of the neck and
he did that lovely little turn, didn't he?
That's not the standard for a flop 5, but I just think the fact is it's a bit humiliating for the lad that they're paying not to sign him. I think he's now.
The thing is, sometimes though, if they said, "Oh look, well it's 50 million to sign him," I'm not going to pay 50 million for him. He's not good enough to pay that. I was like, well look, it's 5 million not to sign him. Well, all right, then whatever, take the 5 million.
But even if he'd done okay, surely activate your buy clause, because their buy clause, I think I might be wrong. I will have to check it. 25 million. It wasn't a lot.
Yeah.
Then sell him. You'd remake that surely. If he'd done okay or good, you'd make that on him. Or
it's a gamble. The thing is, gamble. Who's going to sign him?
Yeah.
Who is going to sign him for 30 million?
I actually feel for him. That is such a shit transfer negotiation, isn't it? To have the option to send him back, but you have to pay if you do that.
I think he's a really good player on his day. I think he needs an arm around him, and I think he needs to be told that you're good. I
think he needs a bit of freedom. He enjoys beating a player with a bit of flair and a bit of skill, and I think when he did do that, he got that lovely assist where he completely dummied it through his legs, ran down and crossed it to Palmer, and Palmer slid it home.
I mean, he has a good goal in the Conference League final, but I expect a lot more from Jadon Sancho. I think he's on his day is a really good player. He's not showed it.
Yeah.
I think 4 or 5 years ago when he was at Dortmund, people were saying he was going to be one of the next best things for him, wasn't he?
I think he just needs to move potentially to a team like West Ham, you'll go there and they'll think he's probably one of their star players, because I think they're going to lose a couple this year as well, West Ham, and I think that could really reignite his career. Or maybe go back to Germany. He'd done really well in Germany twice. Maybe that's just what he needs.
Yeah, go back to a place where you flourished in Dortmund.
Yeah,
makes sense.
The league makes players look a lot better. Look at Anthony; that's absolutely smashing it where he is.
He's insane. Again, I think potentially if they're not in that goldfish bowl of Man United or Chelsea, players are going to look better. Anthony just couldn't deal with the pressure of playing for Man United. I think he's got the arrogance, but he couldn't deal with the pressure. I don't know if Sancho's a bit like that.
I think he falls in that bracket too. You raise a really good point. You look at the players that have left these clubs and they've done very well outside of those those goldfish bowls. I just lots of questions about what's the word? It just doesn't seem like a good environment, does it, at the moment at either club for me?
Moving on from my flop 5, then I'll touch on Man United. Because even though you're saying that about not a great environment, and I completely agree with you, it's not a place where it would appear people want to play football. They're still signing. Brian Mbeumo wants to go there. They've signed Kuna. And I think Mbeumo has turned down Newcastle, allegedly Spurs, Arsenal. But what is it about Man United that... I know they're a massive name and they're a massive club, probably the biggest club in England, but how are they still got this pool and they're not playing European football? Everyone who goes there is absolutely scrutinised. I mean, if you look
they're one of the most supported clubs in the world, aren't they? I mean, everywhere you go, everyone would have heard of Man United. They've got huge commercial income, huge commercial pull. They've got a huge stadium, an incredible history. And I think players will go there thinking, actually, you know what, joining there at rock bottom, if we can get this club back up to where it wants to be,
do the players they've signed,
that's quite exciting.
Do the players they've signed fit that system? I think Kuna does. I'm not sure if Mbeumo does, because when I've watched Mbeumo, he plays quite high, quite wide, and then it's quite direct cutting. And from what it looks like, Amon wants to play a number 9 and then 2 number 10s behind him, which I actually think, I know you said Xerxes, and we kind of skipped over Xerxes in the flop side, but he would do quite well in that role, given the discipline from midfield behind him. But I'm not. Mbeumo is probably going to be a great signing. I'm not saying he's not, but is he the kind of player they needed? He would have done better at a Newcastle, at Arsenal.
I think Mbeumo would have done better being at... Well, we say this, he might absolutely smash it at United, but I think Mbeumo certainly would have been better off at Newcastle or Arsenal. Because, like you say, he loves to sit out wide, and that's what they've already got players who do that. The Gordon, he loves being out wide. They come drifts in, drifts back out. He loves his dart and dive. But
I'm not a big fan of Newcastle. I've got my own opinions on Newcastle. Massive club in Newcastle, but he would have been a good signing for Newcastle, because I think
they needed a right winger, didn't they?
They've got Jacob Murphy, who has had a great season. He ain't going to continue that.
No,
I think Mbeumo would have been a great signing for them. I know they're quite obviously in the northeast. It's hard to get a player there, but I'm surprised players like Kuna and Mbeumo are still looking at going to Man United in the current state that they're in.
Well, in some ways it's quite refreshing that they can look past the sort of immediate future. I think they're thinking maybe possibly longer term. But I think Mbeumo is he's an incredibly talented player. I do believe he could play in the number 10 role, because he's just a great big talent who has developed, improved year on year, playing regular football every single week in a good environment to flourish, with sort of consistent management.
I think for Kuna and Mbeumo, they're going to have a similar challenge this year if they're not going to be the stars. They've spent a whole year being at a team where they're the main man, the focal point, the whole point of, look, lads, let's do this right. If we get in trouble, give it to Mbeumo, let him do his magic. He'll conjure something up. You make the runs, do this, support him. Same with Kuna. So like, give the ball to Kuna, let him do a bit of magic. Try and work back. When I was going to go find where they're going to go.
I think they will, though.
Kuna, do this.
That is the point I'm going to make it. And Mbeumo, less so than Kuna, because he's had Worcester as well, so there has been 2 of them. But definitely with Kuna, he seems to thrive being that main man. But his temperament lets him down. So it'd be interesting to see if he can curve that at Man United.
I think to play for Man United, you have to have a certain personality. And I think Cunha's got it.
Is that what they've lacked recently? Players with a bit of bollocks about them?
Too much.
I think so. I think so. You only have to look at Garnacho.
He looks like he's on his way, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think he's burnt all his bridges with Ruben Amorim, so I think he'll be gone. But yeah, I mean, back to sort of Mike's point. I believe Mbeumo and Cunha will be the stars of that United team. They will be the best players because that is the situation United are in at the moment.
I think Cunha's a big risk for them. They've already, in my opinion, got too many players with too much of an ego. Bruno Fernandes. You've got people like Casemiro, great player, but he's such a big personality. So
I think Bruno's shown great loyalty though, Mike, hasn't he? I mean, he's turned down massive money because he wants to improve things at United.
Is that what he said, or did he say he wants to carry on playing in Europe? So he didn't shut the door to he shut the door to Saudi.
He doesn't want to go to wherever it is.
I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt because he's been playing for United through all of this, for years and years, through all of these negative cycles.
For him, that contract he goes. I think if PSG offer him that contract, he goes.
Even in the quote that Man United put out on their socials, he said, "I want to continue in Europe. I want to continue fighting for trophies." He didn't say he wants to continue at United. He probably was implying it, but it'd be interesting if Real Madrid maybe a bit different, but Bayern Munich, AC Milan, Inter Milan, a team like that, if they could afford to get him out of United, I reckon he'd go.
Well, they're going to have to pay the money because I just don't think United can afford to lose him.
I don't think the team would pay.
They'll have to spend stupid money on a 31-year-old for United to sell. He's just too important. Far too important.
I actually think Fernandes could get the best out of those two. If he can feed them, it's not a bad little trio there to have. If Fernandes can have a bit of freedom, but then that midfield too doesn't offer a lot of freedom for United. So where's Fernandes and these two players fitting in?
Ironically, I think they need someone like Scott McTominay, don't they? Box to box, someone who's going to break up the play, work, and move up and down the pitch.
I think
Bruno needs a defensive midfielder behind him and a box to box next to him to do all the running and the leggings, give him that little bit of space and freedom to pick up the ball and do.
That's another example, Mike, of a player who's left United and gone on to do unbelievable things. Yeah.
I don't think he was too bad at United, though, McTominay. I think he was a victim of playing with Fred.
He was see, again, there's a lot of people from Brazil, like Casemiro when he was at Madrid, stated that if you watch Fred play for Brazil, he always did really well. Fred might have just been a scapegoat. I said I didn't watch that much of him, but I remember a couple of his Brazilian teammates coming out and going, when he plays for United, blah, blah, blah. But you watch him play for Brazil and he's one of our important players.
He couldn't deal with the pace of the Premier League.
Fred and McTominay, forgive me if I'm wrong, it was never as bad as it is now.
No,
United,
they were always
when they were in the team.
Yeah, I probably would agree with that, to be fair. But
they were always in top half with McFred, as they called them, weren't they? They were always fighting for the Europe spots.
Yeah,
and this year,
they were in and around the top
fighting
4.
relegation. So
it's a hard one with United because I think of United when I was growing up. They were Sir Alex Ferguson competing for Champions League, Premier Leagues more often than not winning the Premier League. So it's difficult to sort of compare the players they've got now because none of them would make the squad of that kind of era. And it's going to be hard to see a way back for them getting I'm not saying that they can't do that. It's going to take a lot of time, though.
And right, there's not a
agree.
single
if you look
player.
at the squad Alex Ferguson had at his peak.
Well, to be fair, Bruno Fernandes, they probably fit in the squad. But there's not many other players. Bruno Fernandes, I think
I think Bruno's the only one that you could put in the maybe category.
He'd be a bench warmer for Ferguson, that's about it.
I think if Bruno Fernandes played for a Man City or even like an Arsenal this season, people would have different opinions of him. I think he's playing in a struggling United. So he is a fantastic player. He comes across always like an arsehole, but he's a fantastic player.
He comes across like a petulant child.
Yeah, he can be on the pitch.
And that. So,
the player who's also starting to really improve at United is that Manuel Ugarte, who they spent quite a lot of money on. I think he's starting to show some real promise.
Nice.
CDM.
CDM.
Oh yeah. I like Ahmed.
Oh, and Amad Diallo, brilliant.
But it's his.
Diallo looked really good. One of their nice little academy graduates, wasn't he?
His improvements now are going to be stunted.
Yeah.
No, they signed him. His development's now going to be stunted by Mbeumo. He's not getting in front of him. I think they signed him for like 50.
Yeah, but they can play Diallo at right wing back as well.
He ain't going to want to play there, though, is he?
No.
I know.
But you need strength, though. You need strength.
When did Man United sign Diallo then?
I'm just having a quick look now. Because he came from Atalanta. So they signed him in 2021, loaned him out to Rangers and Sunderland. He was excellent for Sunderland. Right. The Ivory Coast international, but
I know he's quite young 22. And he broke into the team this season, so I assumed he was an academy graduate.
I thought he played a bit last season, but I might be wrong. So he was on loan to Sunderland 22 to 23. So yeah, the 23 to 24 season he'd have been in and around it, but I don't think he played a whole lot.
I'll be honest with you. I think Amad starts in front of all of them at the moment.
What?
Bruno, Mbeumo, Cunha. Amad starts in front of them.
No. That's a hell of a call.
I do. I genuinely think he's had that much impact since Ruben Amorim's been there. And even when he returned back from injury, hit the ground running straight away. I just think he's an incredible talent.
Would Mbeumo have had that impact? Would Cunha have had that impact? You've got to look at that and think, yeah. And would United fans rather lose Fernandes or Ahmed? Take age out of it. None of them are picking Fernandes to lose, are they? Yeah, I don't think you can say he's...
I think you've got to take age into it, though, haven't you? The problem is where Ahmed is, 22, 23, he's still very young.
He's 22, but just the way the team plays, I didn't realise you two had quite so. I didn't realise I had strong feelings on Fernandes, and I don't really. I just think you two are doing him a bit of a disservice because I don't actually like him.
I honestly think he's people overhype Fernandes, in my opinion. I think they overcalibrate his ability. I think if you take Fernandes out of that team, I don't think they suffer.
They're relegated.
No, they wouldn't.
This year they'd be right in amongst it.
I remember we've spoken about Bruno.
He is a good player, but people talk about him like he's absolute world class, one of the best in the world.
I feel like we're turning into the Bruno show. We spoke a bit about Bruno last week as well, so let's move on from Bruno. I don't like him that much to keep sticking up for him, if I'm honest. What do you think of like Xerxes next year? Do you think they'll keep hold of him or look to loan him out? Because they keep bringing him.
I put him on my top 5 worst signings. Maybe that's a little bit harsh. I mean, he's someone who's shown some glimpses. You know, he's got this great big physical presence, but then he's got some trickery about him as well.
He's got time.
Just for some reason, it's not worked. I just think if you can't get in that team when Rasmus Højlund is playing that shit.
He's not a striker. He's not an out-and-out striker, is he? That's the problem he's got, and he doesn't fit into the system.
Well, I think he's figuring it out, isn't he? He's figuring out his best role and best position. So, he's a player of development. I think there is some promise there with Joshua Xerxes. But, yeah, he's got to figure it out.
He'd probably do quite well learning off of Cunha and Mbeumo. Mbeumo. Don't know how he says it.
Yeah.
So I've not
watched enough of him play to know his abilities, but the small bit I've worked with, he's got some tidy feet. Whenever he's had the ball at his feet, it's been decent control, decent dribbling. He just always seems to hold on to it for a split second too long and then make a sideways pass. And as a forward, you want to be moving the ball very quickly and one-touch passing and breaking into the box. And he just seems almost a bit Dimitar Berbatov ways. He's so laid back and doesn't want to sprint, but just with none of the intelligence of Berbatov had, where he was always in the right place to put the ball back of the net.
I'll tell you what is a great shame is we don't have Chalky on this week's episode discussing Man United because we know that's his favourite topic.
He's watching this back, screaming at his iPad.
I'm sure his top 5 flops would have just been all Man United as well.
Probably.
I had 2 of them.
Shall we move on to the Champions League final? maybe we've done PSG a bit of a disservice by leaving them till last to discuss. But I know we've got a couple of lads, Johnny, who's been on this pod as well, and hopefully we'll be on in a couple of weeks' time again. He thought it was one of the worst finals he's ever seen, and I just wondered what your two take on that was, because I thoroughly enjoyed watching PSG in that final. I think Inter let themselves down, but PSG were incredible.
I think as a neutral, watching any 5-0 game as a neutral is going to be enjoyable because there's enough goals and excitement in there to keep you entertained. But
could have been more.
The thing with a final, you almost don't care about the goals. It's more you want to see a contest, a bit of drama, a bit of nail bites. As soon as someone's 3-0 up in a final, it almost takes that wind out of you. Unless it's at half time, of course. You go, no, we've still got half the game to go. We can still do this.
Chalky would mention
it's the biggest winning margin of any Champions League final in history. So
yeah, I completely agree. Statement. I think, as Mike's just said, I think when you're watching a final, you want to see a competitive spectacle, don't you? You want there to be tension, and you want it to last as long as possible. And
Sorry,
I just think PSG just they just accelerated away right from the second minute, didn't they? They didn't look back.
I think it's a statement to how well they played, though, because Inter Milan the least amount of goals conceded in the Champions League, didn't they, at the start at the league stage?
It almost looked like the pressure had got to them a little bit, though, didn't it? Like the occasion it got to Inter Milan a lot more than PSG. PSG played the game, whereas Inter Milan seemed to play the occasion, and it went against them.
Yeah.
What I will say is, of a great final, if Barcelona would have seen out the win against Inter Milan, if they had gone through, I think that'd have been a hell of a game. So it is a shame Barca didn't.
Yeah.
But PSG.
It's a strange one because I actually thought prior to the game, Inter Milan were actually going to nick it. I'm not saying that they were the better team. I just thought it was just the sort of feeling I had. I thought they'd be set up to frustrate and nick one.
A lot of the Inter Milan players have quite a decent amount of experience, and you thought they'd be able to play up to that with a bit of smarts. But I think the youth of the PSG side actually played in their favour.
Yeah.
They played with a freedom. They had no experience of really going to a big final out and going, the disappointments. They just went out there with complete freedom. No, let's just go out there and play our football. Do what we do. Like Dembele's winning. I'm going to stand you up and I can beat you. On my day, I will beat you. Doesn't matter what day we're on. Doesn't matter. It's the Champions League final. On my day, and I'm going to say this is my day, and I'm going to beat you.
There's not many teams in a Champions League final that sit behind the ball and come away victorious. I think Atletico Madrid have tried it a couple of times. Dortmund tried it against Munich. Obviously, Inter Milan against City. Inter Milan against PSG. It does seem in the Champions League final seems to be one of a few games.
Yeah. Well, they did it with Mourinho, didn't they? That was how they won it with Mourinho, didn't they? They won it with a counter-attack. Was it Milito and Eto'o scored the goals?
Yeah, I'm not saying it don't work at all, but if you look recently, it does seem to favour the teams that are a bit braver.
And worked was with the special one, was with Mourinho. So you can't do it unless you've got a manager who really knows what he's doing and has a system he's fully confident with.
And you need that quality at the other end. If you get a chance, you need to take it, because I think Inter Milan had a couple of chances and just didn't look like scoring.
I just think PSG went into that final with complete belief, knowing that they were the better team. They'd knocked out all of the best Premier League sides over 2 legs.
Yeah.
And as Mike alluded to, they've got a lot of young players, particularly that Doué, who probably no one had heard of prior to the Champions League. Unbelievable performance, absolutely fearless to do some of those tricks, score a couple of goals, assist one. Incredible, fearless performance.
That kid who got the 5th as well, I can't remember his name, but his face after he scored was incredible.
It was made up. What's his name? Was it?
I don't know. I'll have a quick look, but I think.
He was buzzing. Champions League final, come off the bench.
The joy.
Was he 18?
As he scored, yeah. I think it's what any of us would have looked like scoring a goal. I'm going to pronounce this horrendously. Mayulu.
Mayulu.
Cavastalia. Talking about. I thought he was incredible. I know we talk about.
He's one of my favourite players.
His work rate's incredible. He don't stop.
Yeah, and I just love his, left foot, right foot, doesn't matter. Such, so elegant as well. Yeah, big fan of. I can't pronounce his name. Kvaratskhelia.
He's number
That'll
7.
do.
He will say PSG is number 7.
PSG's number 7.
But,
Yeah.
So do you think it is probably potentially a bit harsh to say worst final?
Yeah.
I think least competitive final is a fine statement and a fact, as it was the biggest margin that a Champions League final has ever had. But to say the worst final, I think the problem is, as a neutral, you want to see lots of goals. So as a worst final, a bit harsh maybe, but certainly
we saw some
fabulous
goals and moments. Like you can't categorize it the worst final ever when you see a team just at the peak of its powers.
Let's be honest. We'd all much rather watch that final than the Man United Spurs final again, wouldn't we? So
let's put a bit of a gauntlet down. Johnny, I know you're listening. Next week, get on and have your say about that, mate. And then we'd love to take the piss out of you for it. I think we'll end that there on this week's episode, lads. Thank you everyone for listening, watching. If you're on YouTube, sorry we didn't get to upload it to YouTube last week. As I said at the start of last week's episode, I was away and my internet was not going to permit me to upload it. Just want to say again, thanks for watching on TikTok, listening on Spotify. Please get in touch with any questions. Follow us on X, and thank you very much for listening.